shining a beacon on the bazaar.
Benny boy!
Aye, what? Yes, sir, kid. How can I help, Skip?
Look at State Silverware, kid.
Oh, mate, sorry. Let me get a cloth. I'll polish up.
By the way, did you blacken back step as well, by the way?
No, I'm going to do it this afternoon, kid. Let me just get a cloth on this one, though.
This isn't good enough. I'll tell you something. I was looking outside earlier on, you know what I mean? And I noticed the light. It's just so grubby outside.
Is it? Grubby? I did it last week. I'm sure I did it last week.
Last week's not good enough.
Oh, mate, I'll get on to this after. I'll do the step. I'll do the silver. I'll do the step. Do the light. Yeah, I'm on it. Let me just polish this now.
Just put that on your list of jobs to do, right?
Oh, God, fucking hell! Welcome, I need a poo or somewhere!
Oh, Jesus!
I need alright, I'm better.
Right, okay, you sure you're better?
You have one!
Oh,
back!
Oh, that didn't tickle. Oh, that was a bit nasty, wasn't it? You had a bit of a funny turn,
it was too much. It was too much.
Look at the size of that wee patch up front of your
look at it. Oh, God, I didn't even need a poo, but you made me poo. Really poo.
Did you poo?
I didn't poo, but I did a wee.
All right. I thought you did a little poo. I thought you did a little dropped a pebble back in your tweets.
I might have done. I'm all confused now, kid.
Bloody hell.
Oh, my chop's killing. Oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, you needed it then. But yeah, I mean, because let's face it, I think there you're just a little bit hysterical, Arcade.
What? Did I turn?
Yeah, you turned.
Gee whiz. Are they listening to these?
Yeah.
Oh.
Who's listening, though? I tell you who's listening. It's the listeners to Kraken Cove, the podcast that shines a beacon onto the bazaar. And I'm Matt.
I'm a Benny. Well turned, our skin. All right.
Like popping a wheelie, wasn't it?
He's proper dumb on bull. You were like, wow, he's riding it. He's skiing on one ski.
Oh, God, there's one for better off dead.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the thing is, you see, that's a problem we have sometimes. Things happen like that, you know.
Yeah.
Least expected. Here we are, peaceful life in a lighthouse, nice and easy going, steady Eddie. Next thing you know, our asses are falling out.
Exactly, silverware, light steps, all sorts of shit. You forget how complicated it is.
Right, well, let's take a step back. You know what I mean? Do we need a shiny silverware?
No, we never even use them. We use his fingers most of the time.
Yeah, that's true, is that?
It's point beans out of tea.
Yeah, fish finger sandwiches.
Oh, yes.
I love it, you know what I mean? And blackened back step. I mean, most of the stuff out there is blackened anyway.
Well, exactly.
You know? And when it's not blackened, it's all washed clean by it, sort of like the spring tides.
Yeah,
so,
fuck it. And light's alright, isn't it? Nothing's crashing out there.
It's only ships, isn't it?
It's not our ship.
And as we always say, sailors are...
I do. I really do.
They're just wrong and all wrong.
Yeah.
That's it.
Getting on a boat with them boys, Jesus, you know about it.
They're not killing fish, they're not the boy in the barrel, aren't they?
Exactly.
The only sort of sailors I've ever had any respect for usually is pirates.
Yes, I do like a pirate.
Yeah, that's it. There's more of them about than people know. Another thing I've always wanted the idea. Michael Palin did it once. I think it was around the world in 80 days or something. And he took a trip sort of like across one journey on like a super tanker.
Oh no, I thought about that a lot. You know, I saw that episode and I really fancied that. Just the bleakness of it, the slowness of it, just the aloneness, and just those tankers. You know, people around you.
Do you know it's a chance to be bored?
Yeah, just looking out at the back of it for days and days and days.
Imagine just fishing off it.
Oh my God!
It'd be great.
Big chunky rig you've got on that.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Mate.
Yeah, I tell you that time I know a bloke, and his chat up line with the ladies was that he was a treasure diver. Right?
Oh, that's it.
And he reckoned he was a treasure diver. And I'd seen him in action at this bar once talking this last night, saying, "Oh yeah, his main job is diving for treasure."
Wow, right. That's impressive.
And she's saying, "What do you do? How do you go about it?" He says, "Well, obviously you've got to do it on a bit of a budget. Do what you can." And he reckoned on, right. He used to dive the back off North Sea ferries.
Just fucking swan dive off.
No, he'd drop off at back, so hold his nose and roll off at back. Right? And he says, so he'd dive and go around, and then they'd pick him up on way back.
I believe him. Oh, that's it. It's full of treasure and that.
The look on face were totally sceptical, right? And they sort of said, well, did you ever find anything? He says, hey, look at this, right? And he goes in his pocket, he comes out with a quid, right? And he gives it to him and says, you can keep that with a wink.
That's brilliant. Did you succeed in it, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, keep that.
You can keep that, wink.
So you got it framed up back the bedroom wall as well.
Yeah, good, you should still tell it tale now about this doubloon with Queen's Head on it, 1983.
That's good.
But you know what? We to just bring it straight back to where we were.
Yes.
Today we're covering a subject matter which is brought to us by a good friend of the show, Ed.
Cheers, Ed.
Yeah, Ed Munro. And he's been a big friend of mine for a lot of years now. Cool. He's, as Ed will always tell you, one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen Ed do was hit a roundabout in London on a tricycle at such high speeds that the photographer who was sitting on the back of the tricycle still taking photographs, they went up on two wheels. They cornered so hard on this tricycle and on two wheels, and at such speed, never missed a beat, kept on snapping. It was an amazing thing to say.
On a tricycle?
On a tricycle. Ed was pedalling this tricycle in full tweed outfit.
I imagined it really little for some reason. Full tweed.
Yeah, full tweed. Yeah, it was going a hell of a lick.
Well done, Ed.
So thank you very much for this one, Ed, because he's pointed out, really, it's a subject which is close to the Cove's heart.
All right.
We have slightly covered this before in a much, much earlier episode, I believe. And this is about mass hysteria.
Cool.
So there's a bit of it going on again.
It happens every day, if you ask me, Matt. You look at any news at the moment. It's like migrants at the moment, isn't it? Like, let's have a mass hysteria about them. Look at them and don't look what we're doing in the government. It's like,
well, they call it a dead cat, don't they? That?
Is it?
Yeah, they call it a dead cat. Where there's something so shit going on that you can sling a dead cat. You want to sling a dead cat on the table so nobody notices what all the bad stuff is. Everyone's looking at the cat. Nobody notices all the other stuff.
Absolutely, but that's a kind of hysteria. You know, they're trying to whip up an hysteria.
Oh, it absolutely is. All they ever want in the public is some sort of... They don't want quiet reflection and contemplation. They want hysteria.
Yeah.
But then again, that is a government-induced hysteria.
Absolutely.
You know, that sort of thing was... This is the worst kind for the government. This is stuff that kicks off and happens without their control. This is the thing that the government's frightened of.
Yeah.
Governments are frightened of this kind of hysteria.
Ooh,
you know?
It sounds good.
So, and what we need to do, I think, without further ado, I think we should take a little dive into it. So let's get hysterical! This is a story that Ed sent us a link to, and this, when Ed sent me it, I was like, I'm already all over it, Arkid, you know what I mean? You don't need to sort of... And I wasn't. I was a little bit kind of on the back foot. I was already looking at a different story. But this is the one that Ed sent, and this is actually one from the World News, and it's by Rachel Hagan, and I think it might be from the Independent newspaper.
Yeah.
It might not be. If it's not, apologies to Rachel Hagan. Not that she's listening.
Yeah.
Not that anybody is. Nearly 30 fainting schoolgirls rushed to hospital after playing with a Ouija board.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a good one, is this, right? So this is actually in Colombia, right?
Right, yeah.
And it was in the Galeras Educational Institute in Pasto in the south of the country, right? And it's 28 kids have been sort of messing around with a Ouija board.
Is this recently?
Very recently, yeah. This is dated. This is literally sort of 8th of March. This is sort of reported from. Yeah. So this is this month.
Wow.
You know, so basically these kids in Mexico, they've got themselves sort of like the old Ouija board. They've sort of set it all up, right, and they've given it a whirl. I was saying there were possible cases of anxiety in school students, said Hugo Torres, head of the school. Info on the student's diagnosis has not been revealed. However, many parents blame the in-school use of Ouija boards, also known as spirit or talking boards, which spells out messages in mysterious way. In-school use of this, right? Yeah. So, a quick history of the Ouija board, if anyone doesn't really know about it. You know what I mean? It was created in the US in 1886, was the Ouija board. And it's been a fixture of occult lore due to their alleged ability to communicate with the dead and give paranormal activity to those who use them. I mean, obviously, we've talked about it before. The reason it's called a Ouija board, is yes.
Oh
in
yeah, I
French
forgot
and
that.
German, yeah. But they don't know that's for certain. They don't know that's for certain. It's not nailed on. Is that's one of the things I believe it. But again, a lot of these devices and things used in that, because it's not because it's especially primitive, but the people who are superstitious and the religions around these sort of things, or people who use them, sometimes come from quite rustic and rural beginnings. Because people, the high ups, quite often don't need to know the future of things. They already know they're doing well and they're rich. You know what I mean? But people who are sort of like in times of uncertainty will turn to sort of like
definitely that, and like horoscopes. You can notice if someone's having a bit of bad luck, or they're at a bit of a shit place in their life, to suddenly turn to fucking horoscopes, and it's like
I've been thinking about this. One of my things I've wanted to do for years, I just wanted to write a monthly horoscope.
Yeah. Make it up, yeah.
Oh yeah, just make it up. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, just make it up. But then again, I'd like to think I'm just kind of pulling the information straight out the ether.
Yeah.
But then, because it's almost like divining, what I mean? That's the thing.
True.
Which divination in its own way is it's valid. People sort of pulling things from the ether, because let's face it, it's like the biggest users of professional divining. Dowsing rods, the professional dowsing rods, or people who are professional dowsers. Biggest market for them, Yorkshire Water.
Wow.
The water boards of the UK still use dowsing rods.
You're joking?
No.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so if they need to find a leak, one of the things they turn to, even people, their own operatives themselves carry dowsing rods sometimes. Not all of them, but some do.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and what else is that
Jesus.
apart from divining? Yeah, divination. So it's like, they're tending to that. So who knows what people could do? So I reckon I could make me own horoscopes up. But what's been happening here is, you see, it's the girls reportedly suffered from fainting and anxiety and other symptoms at the school before being admitted to hospital. So they said, like, apparently what's been happening is these kids have all got hold of Ouija boards. It's become like a little bit of a craze, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
like a lunchtime thing. Are they literally doing it in school or out of school?
Well, this is the weird thing that's been happening. The rumour's been happening that they're saying that the kids have been using Ouija boards in class. So this is a little bit vague, is this?
Yeah.
But this is what we need to sort of notice. This is something, yes, it is a little bit vague. But they said, but apparently another group in November in Colombia, they said they also collapsed after reportedly using Ouija boards. And they said it was at the Agricultural Technical Institute of Hato. They said that about 11 students aged 13 to 17 passed out in a corridor.
Ooh.
The teenagers were suffering from violent vomiting, abdominal pain, and muscle spasms.
That's trippy, isn't it?
This is it.
Can they understand the fainting of a couple, or even just the hysteria of one going and then a couple faking it, others panicking and doing it?
The children were passed out at the time they were found. They were short of breath, and thick drool was coming out of their mouths.
Yeah, full possession.
That's it. Yeah. So this is the thing that it seems like. It seems almost like full possession. Wow. But let's have a little look at that whole situation, that report. So basically, what we're saying is the parents are turning around and saying Ouija boards have been used in the school. We think they might have been used in class. They're not stating what the situation is, why they might have been used in class. Is it driven by the teachers, the headmaster? Is it just kids doing it?
Is it getting help with the work or something? Now, what's French for yes?
What's German for yes? But again, it's not like, in classrooms, anyone, yes, no,
Zuzu says it's this.
Your counting daughter.
That's the Exorcist.
Where do you see it?
I saw that on telly. I've seen it cinema as well.
Big screen and little screen.
Exactly, all the screens. I love it.
But this is the thing, so we don't really know. It's not fully stated. Now, this has happened again. It's happened before in November in a similar school sort of thing. They're saying Ouija boards were used, quote unquote. There's no fine. I mean, if it was my kids were sort of like things were occurring, Ouija boards being used, and they're saying they're all falling ill and going absolutely mental and things. then you'd want to know what the situation was, and you'd report it. You'd say, it was actually his son's, on the Tuesday the so-and-so that happened, or the Tuesday the 5th, they're all together in a classroom, there's a teacher there, having a big laugh with them all, got the Ouija board out, they all started using it.
Oh, so you think that maybe the teacher's involved?
Yeah. They're not stating one way or the other. This is what I find incredibly interesting. And you would do,
wouldn't you? Like, on the break time, you'd really be serious about it, wouldn't you? In the classroom,
the quote
when the
here,
teacher wasn't there.
Yeah, the quote here is, many parents believe the children have been using Ouija boards in class.
Wow.
Now, it could have been in break time. They could have been getting in the school toilets, all getting around, so, quiet. Let's all do the Ouija board, it's a bit scary. Or, for whatever reason...
Professor Snides there, whatever he's fucking he's like, right, dark arts lesson.
It's all that kind of shit. So you don't know.
That's juicy. I love the idea that your teacher kind of getting involved, and they all freak out in class and start drooling slobber.
Well, that's the thing, but again, in classrooms, quite often the finding is like, again, I'm of the opinion the teachers are no wiser than they are. I think it's, the case of like...
We used to do it, second year at high school, we went through Ouija board phrase and that, and you write about mass hysteria. Everybody wants it to work. Yeah. And I used to do it with this kid. He used to write out on a piece of paper. Then you like cut a bit of, cardboard out, something to go over it. What's the name for that thing in the middle of that little?
The planchette.
Well done, our kid. Boom! He just like, he didn't even aim. He just drew and he just fired. How cool as shit. One of them. But kid used to, he used to put his hands over my eyes and say, "Look, Ben can't see," but he used to always give me a little crack so I could see out. And I'll spell all devil shit out and all that. And I'll go, everybody's freaking out and shit, we're ace, you know what I mean? I thought they must know I'm doing it, you know what I mean? But they wanted to believe and they wanted to get all...
I think there's a bit of that. There's very much a bit of that where it's almost like it's a release in itself, is the hysteria.
Exactly.
I think we might have discussed this before. It's like the whole idea of like during like the 1800s when people were bringing whiskey into America to amongst the Native Americans. And the Native Americans were acting in a very particular way when they were very, very drunk, completely going wild.
Wow.
Absolutely wild, and people couldn't believe how mad everyone's going. So have you seen it? But that was part of their cultural reaction to being out of control.
Wow.
They reacted in a certain sort of way. Now, same sort of thing with like the very buttoned up, tight Catholic Irish. So they're very, very, very religious. They're not allowed to kind of let go in any kind of real way, apart from when they're drunk. So the old Irish wake was a great excuse to sort of say, you throw off the shackles of all this sort of social constraint. You act like an absolute loon, cry, wail, pull your hair because I'm drunk at the wake, sort of thing, And this is a common thing for a lot of stuff. You could probably have, tell people that they're drunk or they're pissed or they're sort of like taking something and let them just go wild. Humanity is looking for an excuse at any given time to just throw off the cloak of sanity and become the beast.
Yeah, baby.
And I think that's what a lot of these situations are. So I think what we need to do is dive even deeper.
Deeper, Arcade.
And have a little look at some further examples of mass hysteria.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
That sounds lovely. You were sort of saying about sort of like drawing your own planchette or something.
Oh, yeah.
A mate of mine was telling me about a lad he knows and what he used to do on a little piece of paper. He used to draw four lines in a row.
Yeah.
Right? And then he'd do sort of 2 lines on the way down.
Yeah.
On each side. And then do little crisscrosses.
Right.
And it looked like a little pair of women's legs in stockings. And he used to wank over that.
You did it? Yeah. Oh, that's weird. I've heard about people drawing their own porn before, and that is like, you know what I mean? That's the maddest shit ever. You know what I mean? You can like think about it and nearly see it in your mind, can't you? Like, imagine a big pair of wobbly knockers now. I can see them. You know what I mean? Big dummy nip-nips and everything. Why draw it? That is fucked up. Wow.
But no, the story that I thought Ed was telling me about is in Iran. Now, this has been running. Yeah.
Cool.
Right. What do you know a bit about it?
Well, I know that there were poisonings happening. Then it's suddenly gone countrywide. That's the last I heard of it.
That's right. Yeah. This is it.
Because I was really wondering about that. Thinking, wait a minute, not against. It's the teenage girls that will get in there. I'm thinking, God, that is like possession. You hear a lot of like possessed stories, or suddenly, like the Salem witch trials, all that sort of stuff, stemming from that energy that teenage girls.
Well, this is the thing. So basically, what's been happening? It started in one school first. There was a spate of poisonings in a school.
Yeah,
and there was symptoms included fainting, nausea, shortness of breath, and unpleasant odours on the school premises. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it at the moment in Iran. In fact, you are aware. I know you're aware. There's a young lady. She was seen on the street with like the hijab or a headscarf was slightly loose, and it showed some of her hair. And the sort of like they have two sets of police. They have the ordinary police, and they have like the morality police.
Oh,
now, I do respect a lot of cultures. These guys are arseholes. If you've got morality police in any way, shape or form in your country, they are arseholes, and they're just wrong. They are absolutely wrong. I'll stick by that.
Absolutely.
So basically, these morality police, thugs, came round, saw her, gave her a really hard time of it, you know what I mean? She kind of fought back and told them where to go and everything.
Yeah.
They, next thing, they got her in a van. Beat her to death in a van.
Oh, Jesus! I didn't know that.
They beat her to death in a van. There was a ruckus. There was a fight. They reckon something like she had a heart attack or something.
Oh, no.
This was about towards the back end of last year.
Oh, it's fucking disgusting.
Next thing you know, the Iranian school or the student population, they kicked off.
Good.
Now it's very, very difficult in Iran to kick off because the morality police for a start are very powerful. They're armed. They sort of like they cracked down as hard as they could. The ordinary police waded in as well. They started fighting him. There was just wholesale ruckus. Many people have died in this aggro now. A lot of young people. I think they're so incredibly brave. They're like,
it's life-changing to stand up. They know your name forever, don't they?
This is
still
it,
stand up.
They've been spiriting people away by the 100 now. Basically, sort of midnight raids going around, trying to get the ringleaders and things, snatching school children. I mean, teenagers and stuff from their own homes in the night. Absolutely shocking state of affairs. Tense situation going on in Iran. Really harsh. Next thing you know, you've got the gas attacks occurring in these schools.
Gas attack?
That is a thinking. The thinking it could be gas attacks of these poisons.
Smelling somewhat unusual in the school.
This is it, So, as I said before, you're getting your fainting, nausea, shortness of breath, all that kind of stuff. Luckily, there's been no deaths. Now, it's gone from one school to another, to another. Now, it is absolutely spread, right? And it's gone throughout these schools. These kids falling, dropping like flies, right? It's just really good. Now, the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, right, he said last Monday he's called for the perpetrators of this unforgivable crime to be tracked down without mercy. And he has said anybody, when they're found guilty of this, it's instant death. He's going to execute them.
Are they doing it and they're just trying to pin it on some other, or they've just got a sheriff's badge to kill?
What has happened here is there's no gases. Wow. There's been over 100 arrested. They're saying they think they found the perpetrators. They haven't found the perpetrators because this is hysteria. Nothing has occurred. This is a classic case where it's a tense situation. The pupils involved they've had enough
freaked out, haven't they?
They're freaked out.
Their own kind of. If you can't stand up and shout, "No, I think this is wrong. I want to be free." You kind of physically freak out, don't you? In a sense,
right.
Pretend it's gas or just get hysterical.
It's got hysterical. This is the thing. So it's like things have got to hit a kind of peak where it's just exploded. It's like a pressure cooker. So these kids, basically, these poor kids have basically had hysteria, gone to pieces, screamed, shouted, carried on alarming. Wow. You know what I mean, and just gone to pieces. But the government, I personally think, my opinion of this is, the Iranian government have decided, ahoy hoy, we can use this to our advantage. Why do we look now for people who we can blame for this, say it's their fault, and make them arrest? Instant death.
Fucking hell, I feel so bad for it. We've touched on it before. The Persians, you know what I mean? They're like cool as shit, and they're just the Ayatollah Knobhead or whatever his name is.
I'd steady on that. So I don't find you wading into deeper and deeper.
Let me swim back. Wait up. I'm back. I'm dry. We're okay.
Well, I do think the issue quite a lot of the time is a lot of these countries were very cool in the 60s and 70s. Were very sort of like open and things were fine. I think it's any religion in any situation that cracks down and inhibits people's freedom.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the religion is.
You can't force people to do it.
Christianity's done it. The Muslim faith has done it. I mean, a lot of people listen to podcasts at the moment about Scientology's doing it. Loads of different sort of like other religions are doing this. At any point when a religion inhibits the natural freedoms of people, I think you're going down wrong paths.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. So it's not just about this religion or that religion.
God, that's fascinating. That's the end of that kind of pressure, that kind of freak out. I wonder if they're doing it on purpose, or is it a natural? Is it just hysterical, getting sick and barfing and carrying on?
Well, what I think we need to do, and I think we need to have a little bit of a deeper dive on that.
Deeper, Arky! Deeper!
I think we find out what the heck's going on.
Yeah, please, baby.
This one kind of leads us on to something which is a little bit more revealing. It starts because I don't want to turn around and say, "Oh, it's this Arcade or it's that." You know what I mean? Because I think nobody can say that. Nobody can fully say it's this. It's one thing or another. This is the trigger which causes that. You know,
absolutely.
Because this is one from Afghanistan. Now, obviously, again, it's a place under a lot of pressure, a lot of issues going on in that particular country. This one was actually originally published in 2013, and this is from a paper called The Peninsula. And I've noticed a couple of things in around that area. I believe it's a Qatari publication, is The Peninsula. But this is just something I managed to find on one link after another and I found this as a rundown. This is in Kabul, 2013. Afghanistan's education minister has threatened to punish schoolgirls who claim to suffer from alleged poisonings.
Weird. When's this, Arcade?
This is 2013.
Wow.
So this is 10 years ago now, But I mean, this is still at the time where there's that massive change, basically going from like the Taliban. It's the Taliban being in charge, but to our sort of like, or the administration, the American and the Western administration that took over for a while. It's obviously
took over.
But that's basically it is. And again, the Taliban are in power again now, so it's like But the report goes that scores of girls' schools have seen mysterious mass faintings, nausea, and similar symptoms, often blamed by police and the media on poisoning by Taliban insurgents or gas leaks. So yet again, same symptoms. There's no lab evidence of poison or other toxins found at any of the schools. No deaths have occurred, and the girls are often discharged after only a few hours when they've basically had a chance to kind of calm down, you know? It's in the latest case, 200 girls were reported to have been poisoned at a school in Kabul on the 1st of May, causing screaming, stomach aches and vomiting. Same symptoms as the last school were reporting to. They said this is Ghulam Farooq Wardak, right, told a press conference on Tuesday. I think he's the education minister. He said, if I find anyone saying I'm poisoned and the poisoning is not proved, I will punish the student.
Wow.
He says, I will punish the teacher. I will punish the head teacher. I will punish the school director.
Steady, old lad.
He is determined to crack down on causes and or outbreaks of what he calls psychological illnesses among the girls. He says when one student faints, it spreads around and everyone might think it's poisoning, the minister's spokesman said.
Wow, because you think about it, it ain't possession, you know what I mean? But that bit about how fast it travels, that trend, you know, and that attention that person gets when they do it, and other people wanting that attention, and how fast it'll spread, you know what I mean? Is it something down that rabbit hole?
But what you're saying, well, I mean, I don't know how qualified you are, Benjamin, to say it's not possession.
That's what I mean. Oh, fuck. I'm not qualified at all, I'm just thought. I'm really not.
It's presumptuous of you, young man.
It does really make me feel.
You've got to remember, you're at Kraken Cove.
Yeah.
We're going to look at this.
Oh, can we?
Perhaps we should look deeper again.
Deeper.
Because I'm thinking what we need to do is go roll straight into a different case.
Go on, baby, let's go.
We need to look at a Malaysian school this time, right? And we are going to go back to 2016. So this is from Emma Henderson of The Independent, right? And she reports that a school in northern Malaysia has been forced to close amid claims of screams being heard.
Wow.
And a sighting of a black figure.
Crikey.
So local media called the case mass hysteria, and it began about a week ago. So a week ago, this will take it into this sort of like early April. So this has been early April 2016. This is a few years after that last report we were talking about in Afghanistan, you know. And the school is located in the city of Kota Baru, and it was closed on Thursday following 3 attacks of hysteria, as they're calling it.
Wow.
Right? So Principal Sitahawa Mat said all the victims had described the same black figure, and by Wednesday 50 pupils suffered the attacks, along with 11 teachers.
Wow. Attacks?
Yes. So several students said they'd seen the ghostly figure in the canteen, the hall and the classrooms, reported the Straits Times. The school, which is Kelantan, which is 1,044 students and 84 teachers, it reopened on Sunday after authorities brought in Islamic traditional experts, scholars and witch doctors.
Cool,
yes,
that's a gang, innit? That's a party.
A mob, innit? Yeah, this is it, yeah. But reports of the screaming and shouting continued, according to Free Malaysia Today. Nurulail Wati Ramli, a teacher of the school, told news channel Astro Awani, because when I was holding one of the students, my arms felt extraordinarily heavy. Right, so basically what she's doing, she's restraining one of the students. Yeah. She grabbed them, held them, make sure they didn't harm themselves. Yeah. Bang! Suddenly, the child felt really heavy. I recited the istighfar, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and it's seeking forgiveness from Allah. It's like a little prayer, right? Things were truly out of control at the time, but after the pupil recovered and went home, I then felt as though someone was hanging onto the left side of my body.
God.
I saw flashes of black, like a black figure.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And now another teacher, Kamaria Ibrahim, she said she tried to recite verses from the Quran when she realised she was losing control herself.
Wow.
I saw a black figure, like it was trying to enter my body, but my colleagues were surrounding me reciting verses of the Quran. I felt like my head was bloated. I felt numb and tears kept pouring down my face. I silently recited the Ayatul Kursi, which is a verse from the Quran, over and over again, and then my head began to feel lighter after about an hour. God. So in 2012, the World Health Organization said an outburst of poisonings at a girls' school in Afghanistan, right, that's what we're talking about, was most likely to be mass hysteria as opposed to a Taliban plot.
Yeah.
So this, to me, is the nearest scrape we've got to sightings, possible possessions, as well involving teachers. So the teachers are involved as well, but it's not to say that they're not sort of like infected by the hysteria as well.
Exactly. You know, got to get whipped up in it. When it all kicks off, it's really hard keeping it clear in situations like that.
Well, I think one thing we've found, which is a common thread through a lot of these so far, apart from the Ouija board one, is these are actually quite devout, sort of like religious schools. But to double back on that, that's not to say the Colombian one, which was at the first, the case with the Ouija boards, devout Catholic area.
It is, isn't it? Really devout,
Yeah, so these are areas where the big fear of all this sort of stuff really comes down to sort of like...
devils and evil spirits?
Yeah, possession. Arcade possession. You know? So,
by the power of Christ!
What's that from?
Some off telly.
But he also, I particularly like that phrase because it was used in an Alice Donut record. Was that?
Oh, yeah.
Power of Christ compels thee.
Oh, is it? I've never heard that one.
Yeah, it's cool. Good. I can't remember the name of the song, but I like a bit of Alice Donut.
Oh, there is.
Good band, yeah. So again, so there you have it. This is basically coming down to being a Muslim. Most of them being Muslim states. Yeah. Not necessarily just picking out the Muslim faith as being something that can be.
It's just faith itself, innit? And they're so similar when you look at the books, really. You know what I mean? All right, they are different towards end.
Yeah. Well, true, but we had to. Spoiler alert!
yeah, all right, I ruined that for someone.
Quick clue: he dies. But third day. All I'll say is third day. Wait for that
get to that bit.
Yeah. But if you're reading the Quran, that's not the end. Book 3, kid, it says. If you're Jewish, book 2 is just bollocks to them.
Isn't it? Yeah. They've only got one, haven't they?
I suppose it's like a lot of things, isn't it? You know, I really like The Hobbit. You say it goes a bit far into other books.
Silmarillion, you're like, nah, I'm alright for that.
You're talking bollocks. Silmarillion. Have you ever tried to read it, man?
No, I won't, because you said it, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm not, if you can't read it, I ain't got a chance.
It's wading through treacle, Silmarillion is.
Sometimes Lord of the Rings is, though, you know, son of all them lot. I didn't need to know all that, you know what I mean?
Back end of Lord of the Rings. Man.
Yeah, it is, it's terrible.
Christ.
That movie as well.
It's like Brookside or something. Hard work. So that's the thing. So what we're basically looking at here is that people are becoming absolutely overwhelmed by sort of religious fervour. And could we argue that if you believe in demons and spirits, you are open to possession by them?
Yeah, in a way, innit? You know, you just shake it off if you didn't believe, would you? You know.
Well, I've never heard the case of somebody who doesn't believe in demons and devils and things.
Atheist possession is. Yeah.
Oh, wow, sounds like a good band.
It does. It does. There's a metal there,
death metal band. Atheist possession.
Let's get some leather and start it.
But that's the thing. So we've basically got here what I'm finding of the correlation we're getting here, right? Because I found a further report on these schools.
Yeah.
Now, this is somebody called Robert Bartholomew, right? And he wrote a book on MPI, which is what we used to call mass hysteria. It's now called mass psychogenic illness, MPI, mass psychogenic illness, right? And he says this school's in Kedah. This is where one of these schools was in Malaysia. And he says, it doesn't surprise me this outbreak is in Kedah. It's one of the more conservative and devoutly religious states. A typical day at one of these boarding schools reads like a page from 1984. Where every aspect of living is rigidly controlled and people are treated like numbers. Frustration and anger build up over weeks and months. Under these circumstances in the stricter schools, strange behaviours tend to emerge. What is so extraordinary is that these shy, seemingly naive and politically powerless schoolgirls usually get their way, with outbreaks of mass hysteria drawing attention to what they see as unjust rules and poor living conditions. Episodes give a voice to the voiceless as community leaders and government officers will press school officials to ease the rules. But he adds, this is not manipulation. I cannot stress enough that this is not a conscious process and the girls are not faking it.
I'm still 50-50 split, like you say. If it's someone at the end of the tether, just too pushed into that corner and they freak out, they don't really know what they're doing but they're just freaking out, or are they just so open for that demon to slot in there and take over? You know, you need perfect conditions for demons.
Well, what was the perfect conditions for this happening? The most famous.
Which trial? I'm going to go back to it.
You were straight on the money, on the nail. The Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
That was the one that was the big one. The Salem witch trials. It was the perfect conditions where these were first of all, there were women in that society.
Yeah.
They were completely powerless as because we're young people.
I'm going to say, they're not adults, they're young, they've got nothing, have they? They're the weakest link in it all.
And suddenly their names are known. They are almost like the celebrities of the time. They had power beyond their dreams.
And beyond their years, like you say, we still know their names now because of what those actions that they took and decisions.
One finger pointed. I mean, can you imagine that now, just having that power, point a finger, next thing you know, by lunchtime they're burning at a stake, just about. You know,
it happens all the time with cancel culture.
That's true. I mean, you did it before. Point that finger, shout nonce. Next thing you know, all social media accounts deleted.
Nearly got Gary Lineker, didn't they? And he's clearly got his job back as well.
I don't think he got his aim was it wasn't going to be. Well,
I ain't looked at it at all. I don't even know what he's supposed to do.
Wading out in the deep
Well,
waters.
just see it all. Gary Lineker, he's got his job, he ain't got his job. Oh, fuck.
I love it that you get so close to saying Gary Glitteritz.
It was. I still got that image of that when they're all them kids on that other episode and that when he's on that boat.
What do you mean?
It's another episode, you need to cut that shit. Remember that one with Africa Story?
I do remember the one actually, I just wanted you to describe it a little bit. Basically, we're talking about Gary Glitter actually being like, forsooth for thou shalt be. Everyone following Gary Glitter because he is the leader of the pack. All these kids marching after him, you know. Well, just as a little side note, basically for our overseas listeners, because we do have overseas listeners. There is basically a football pundit who's very famous for selling crisps. He's the guy who reports on soccer or football on TV. One of the biggest TV shows we've got is called Match of the Day. Saturday and Sunday on the evening, peak viewing times. They show the football. This guy's on telly talking about it. I can't see the attraction.
I know. What a ball.
Yeah, what a ball. Yeah. So on a Saturday night, everyone sits down, cracks a beer, and watches some guy talking about football games that have been on for the day. It's not for me.
Yeah, for me.
But fair play to Gary Lineker is because our immigration policies changed. So we've got an issue at the moment with like small boats coming over, full of absolutely desperate immigrants, and they're trying to just find sort of asylum in the country, really. I know there's a lot of people coming over. It's, excuse the pun, it's a drop in the ocean. The amount of people who are actually coming over, so it's not that bad. It's not a big problem, but people have seen it as like a political pivot point.
Absolutely, like we were on about it earlier on, they're trying to get hysteria out of it.
Yeah, they are, So, but basically, because our government's trying to ban people coming over, Gary Lineker, a football pundit famous for selling crisps, has spoken out on it on Twitter. And the BBC has tried to silence him, shut him down, sort of take him off TV, basically.
Well, is he just saying, look, it ain't a big deal, just chill out about it? Or?
No, he's turned around and said the government's acting like Nazis.
That's great.
He's spoken up in a way. Yeah, he's spoken up and basically said the rhetoric and the words used and the phraseology used and the way we're going about it is how the Germans went against the Jews in World War II. This is like
it's like those riots in Liverpool. And I know some stuff happened, but they whipped them up into a frenzy enough to have lynch mobs, literally.
It's crazy. And this is outside detention centres. It's like basically dickheads, and you are dickheads if you're doing this, is rioting outside detention centres because they're thinking that the people inside, these poor people trying to find asylum, are wrong-uns and they're trouble. They're not. They're just people trying to find shelter. Yeah. But this is a deeper issue than it is for KRAKEN Cove.
Yes. Yeah.
But the issue they had was that this one football pundit is speaking out, and they're saying it's illegal for a BBC representative or BBC employee to talk politics, right? Mm-hmm. Yet, who was the guy who was always pushing the Conservative Party, always stepping in, making political statements? Somebody who was a big BBC employee, who was constantly chumming up to the King.
Jimmy fucking Savile.
Jimmy Savile, spokesperson for Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
He has been seen, he was seen time and time again in a bus saying vote Conservative, wearing T-shirts saying vote Conservative.
So when it suits him, it's absolutely fine if it's Conservative and you want to suck the King up and that.
So all you need to do is type into your search engines Jimmy Savile Conservative Party and see what you see, and then sort of like...
it's the tip of the ocean. We've gone nowhere with Jimmy, haven't we?
Tip of the ocean?
Oh, fuck off. Tip of the iceberg in the ocean.
Drop in the ocean, tip of the iceberg.
Something like that. God, it's bad, isn't it, though? I never thought about his political pushes and that, and he wasn't it?
Yeah.
On her bus.
Yeah.
Tory. twats.
So let's steer the ship back to where we came from.
Yeah, please, safely back our kid.
Let's get it back to where we were talking about hysteria amongst people under political duress.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or sort of like a social duress, shall we say.
Religious.
So, yeah, or religious duress. Yeah, I think religious is probably the term we should be using.
That's why I'm here, our kid. Steer that boat back.
Boop, boop. But every Monday I'll say I need to go to the doctors with my poor arse.
Oh God, is it still that bad?
It's fucking getting worse. Oh man, I've got a fucking special chair. What I keep wondering, have I got spine cancer?
Oh, don't say that.
Cancer of the arse, spine. I hate cancer like that. Yeah, it's just the worst, isn't it?
I don't want to think about the big sea at all. It just grooms me out. I'm go swim and just swim off and just die before it gets me. I couldn't wait for it. I don't like no.
You all got Ben. It was the big sea.
Yeah.
What was it? What cancer? No, the sea.
Yeah, he got the sea, swam off into the sea. Never saw him again.
Yeah, big sea got him.
That's a cool story. It's a good end to me tale, isn't it?
Yeah. Death by pun. I might keep that in.
It's good enough, isn't it?
And on that day there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man. And from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy, and from that boy there was a man. And for that man there was a grave, and on that grave there grew a tree.
Earlier on, a newspaper called the Straits Times. Now that was something, I think it was a Qatari kind of newspaper, and it was like covering these sort of cases in that area. You know, sort of looking at a few. So what I thought we'd do is just have a quick rundown of a few that Lee Min Kok, who is a reporter for the Straits Times, they looked into a little bit of this kind of information, sort of just like because these things were going on. They thought, right, quick, let's have a quick rundown of ones that occurred. So an interesting one here was the General Electric television appliance factory, right? 1973. This is in Malaysia. Yeah. A case occurred that the company's flattened factory in Boon Keng Road, when 8 female employees became hysterical. No report of a second incident, but on 17th of January, a third incident was said to have happened with as many as 25 women on the factory's board assembly line that were affected. So basically the whole place, 3 incidents, there's no information on the second incident, 3 incidents in one factory. They had to basically shut the place down temporarily, right? One woman said, "It was frightening. The women went into a trance and started screaming." Shit. So they basically completely locked down, went frozen, catatonic, and just started howling.
Oh my God.
Right? Another said they did not take the first incident seriously, but it certainly gave concern when another 12 became hysterical on Tuesday the 16th, and then about 25 on the 17th.
Wow.
So employees also claim they saw visions of a teenage girl lurking in the washroom for several nights.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So Bomos, which is holy men, and Buddhist monks held daily seances during the outbreak as incense was burnt and holy water sprinkled on 2 blocks of the factory. They basically did like a fucking an exorcism to get rid of it, right?
Oh.
The Pon Pon Food Factory, right? Factory in October 1973, the same year. A dozen female workers stricken by mass hysteria at the food company's factory in Little Road off Upper Paya Lebar in October 1973. This place produced dried cuttlefish and employed about 120 workers, mainly women, and they were the ones who were taken ill, same sort of symptoms of hysteria. 1977, which is the Telecommunications Authority of Singapore, a factory there, right? A group of women start screaming and struggling with those who tried to calm them, and it just sort of like whooshed through the whole factory. People, one after another, they became almost possessed. They later declared, right, after they'd gone into trances and started vomiting and frothing at the mouth, they said that a jinn had entered their body. So the jinns had got into the place, right? So the hysteria affected 16 telephonists as well. So like in the office area, they completely lost it too. So they were taken to hospital because one was taken to hospital with a minor injury, basically from thrashing around. She hurt herself, but she was discharged late that day. All the rest recovered perfectly, no illness. Woodsville Secondary School, 1979, yet again Malaysia. There was a lot of there was a lot of American influence in the area at the time. So a lot of American factories, things being built over there, and so there was sort of like quite kind of, shall we say, sort of American influence to the schools and all the infrastructure over there at the time. April 24th, 1979, at noon, 48 students became hysterical during this outbreak. So for 3 days, a frightening epidemic sent one student after another into frenzied, trance-like states. Some cried, shivered, started eating grass and empty glasses, crunching their way through glasses, right? Jesus. They stared into empty space with open eyes while performing a Tai Chi type of dance movement called the Kuda Kepang, an ancient Malay wedding dance.
Wow.
So they're eating glasses, staring, screaming, going through these weird dance motions, right? Some were restrained from their violent fits by teachers. No one could communicate with them during their violent fits and trances.
Fucking hell.
That's bad, innit?
It's just making me go more possession side than hysteria.
That's what it feels like, yeah. 6 years after the first outbreaks at General Electric Television Appliance Company, so the 1973 was the first one, another mass outbreak. 20 women were overcome by mass hysteria, screaming hysterics, foaming at the mouth, same sort of thing, staring into the distance, right? Another unnamed electronics firm, 1979 in the Bedok South facility, right? They were struck with mass hysteria over 2 consecutive days. The problem, which had been especially prevalent in labour-intensive industries, mostly electronics and textile firms, warranted a closed-door discussion between the senior executives of various companies and the ministry on April 1980. What they kind of realised was these places, it's like the Apple factory in China.
Oh, I've not heard of that.
Well, basically what it is, they're using it, great example is in the Apple, making your iPhones and all that sort of stuff. You go to your Apple factory there, and it's on multiple levels, is the Apple factory, and there's balconies, it's quite a beautiful factory. The weird thing about the Apple factory is there's anti-suicide netting on all the balconies.
Jesus.
Because the pressure to perform and to build and to create these amazing devices is so high and so much pressure. They're even locking people into these factories to work against their will for certain shifts.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
God.
Because they need these devices. This was what was happening in Malaysia. Right. America had shifted manufacturing for a lot of their sort of like what they consider inexpensive things like televisions, garment manufacturing, things like that. Moved it all away from America to cheaper places like Malaysia, built it and invested these factories over there. But the human rights violations that were going on were absolutely shocking. So these people were under vast pressure plus certain set of religious beliefs and understandings creates hysteria.
Wow. Or does it open a doorway to possession?
Well, it could, but as I said before about drinking whiskey under certain cultural environments, people react in a way that's almost expected of them. They're under pressure, they don't know what's going on, they don't know how to react because they never had to react under such circumstances before. What is there sort of say, well, it's not my fault. If it's not your fault, whose fault is it? The fault is...
I'm possessed!
I'm possessed, it's a demon.
Right, yeah. Going back to Irish, it was whiskey that did it?
Yeah, sort of thing, I think it's a demon drink.
Oh, the drink!
Of the demon. But so that's the thing. So this is like a rundown of those particular cases. Shows you that this is a huge issue, a huge problem among these particular, shall we say, among those particular cultures at that particular time.
God, that's fascinating, isn't it? Going to gin though, they're scary, aren't they? They're really. I need to send you some footage about that. I've seen some gold recently. Really scary videos. Really horrible.
Well, I think we need to. Again, I can see if I get the time, I'd like to do a special on not just the gin, but to work across a few of those little things. But the gin, and there is actually I'll try and do a link to it. There's a great podcast on. I think it's called The Hidden Gin or something like that.
Oh, listen to that! God, I was decorating listening to that. Really, that lady, isn't it?
Yeah, she's fantastic. Really, really, really good presenter of a podcast. And actually, although it's quite scary because it's all about the gin. It's pretty chilling.
It is,
as in chillaxing. It's relaxing. You just think,
she's got a lovely voice, hasn't she? She's got a lovely, calm way of discussing it.
Brilliant way. Great communicator. So, I think it's called The Hidden Gin. So, I would recommend that as a podcast.
God, that's really... You know, I'm going possession until you said China and Apple factory, and instead of getting possessed, they're just jumping off the buildings in a way. You know what I mean? With pressure. Well, so you're bringing it back to hysteria now for me.
Well, let's go back to China for that thing. What is the reason why they might be jumping from, or committing suicide or killing themselves? Why that reaction might be the case there? Why not a religious reaction?
Oh, they got rid of religion, didn't they, really?
Communist state,
Oh, God.
They don't have that natural religious outlet or demon or creature to blame.
Yeah.
There's
nothing. Pressure's too much. Fuck this, I'm off.
So the only way to actually transfer that pressure, I can't cope. Yeah. Not because, and you haven't got the outlet of saying something's possessed me, I've completely lost it. The only sort of person to blame is yourself, and that blame is saying I can't cope, I should be stronger. The great leaders could cope under these immense pressures. Why can't I? Because I'm weak and inferior and I'm letting down the side. So what do? Top myself.
Jesus.
Terrible.
That is shocking. Man.
Dark, innit? Go back to one of the earlier examples of this kind of mass hysteria, right? And there is going to be a correlation with what we're talking about, weirdly enough, right? And this goes back to a bit more of a sort of like a local area, if you like. And this is sort of like this is from The Guardian in 2015. This was recorded by the science editor. And it said in 15th of February 1787, there was a woman in a Lancashire cotton mill decided to scare one of her co-workers with a mouse.
That's cool.
Yeah. But the prank made medical history.
Shit.
Terrified of the rodent, the woman on the receiving end had a fit that lasted hours. So she completely lost it, went into a catatonic state, had a fit. The next day, 3 more workers suffered violent fits. The day after, 6 more workers.
Whoa.
Alarmed and mystified at the epidemic, the owners closed the mill amid rumours of a disease that brought in by contaminated cotton. So this is about 100 years after the Black Death, but during those 1700s, Black Death was still outbreaking and popping up, you know what I mean? That might be the contamination that might be thinking of, and the fear was still very real.
Especially with cloth, apparently that were a big part of the Black Death, moving it around.
That's right, this is very much right. The gnats and the fleas that were within these cloths carried the plague, so that could be part of the fear. When Dr. William St. Clair arrived from Preston to investigate, he found 24 people affected. 3 worked at another factory 5 miles down the road, and he ended the epidemic swiftly. It was merely nervous, easily cured, and not introduced by the cotton, he concluded. Suitably reassured, all recovered and no more workers fell ill. Now, what we actually have there is a weird thing. It's an intervention by a higher authority that people trust. Now, in a weird way, the Afghan leader that time we had in the earlier story turned around and said, anyone who's coming up with this bullshit's going to get punished.
I'm going to do you down, I'm going to kick your dog, I'm going to...
Exactly, whoa, all right. Oddly enough, it's not the right way of dealing with such a subject. That isn't. But it probably works.
I bet it does. The consequences there, you're like,
that's right, it's a cruel thing to say. What we need to do is, these are this is a symptom of what's occurring here. This is a symptom of a bigger problem. And you could probably stop the problem temporarily by saying, hey, look, stop this shit. You're all right, you know what I mean? So on Wednesday, so I think this is a recent occurrence, is this. So more than 2 centuries later, and 65 miles up the A59 from Lancashire, 40 pupils at the Outward Academy in Ripon, North Yorkshire, had treatments for dizziness and nausea after 4 fainted in an Armistice Day service. Fire brigade specialists dispatched to the incident found no signs of hazardous material, but the assembly hall was warm, so it's a warm room. They're all in together.
All it takes is a boring fucking teacher. It goes on forever, doesn't it? Remember fucking going to mass? It used to send me fucking batshit. And you just stood there like, oh shit, I'm going to go wild.
I know, just passing out all the time with it, So David Winspear of the North Yorkshire Fire Service suspects that a handful of children fainted, with the rest developing symptoms driven by anxiety that rippled through the school. One student talked of a domino effect. So that's what that's a witness saying, it was just dropping like dominoes, because one went, another went, people think there's something wrong, bang, off they go, you know.
Always a way out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that actually proves there that, you know, so that is that's a modern example happening in a school in Ripon. So North Yorkshire, not particularly religious school either. So this was under certain circumstances where they were actually sort of thinking, I think it was just the conditions themselves. Probably a high pressure situation in its own right. The fact that they're all in together, it's all a bit warm. They're all a bit under duress. Again, no religion involved. It's just the case somebody sort of said, "Oh, I feel a bit sick because it's warm." Next thing you know, like I say, it just swept through the whole.
It's a weird situation. You're too shy to go to the toilet in a way, or you can't ask for a glass of water or open a window. It's boiling, they're rattling on. Is it minute silence on that one then?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I still think that's something linking. I bet it's something around that silence or that moment, and then just one goes, everybody just start.
It just proves in those conditions that's it. And in fact, weirdly enough, the only way out, because you don't think to yourself, it's not like in those conditions you can stand up and say, do you know what, I just need to nip out and get a bit of fresh air. You can't. You know, you're just thinking you're under pressure. So the only way to go is to actually sort of flake out and go for it. You see
one thinking, I'm feeling that.
Yeah, that's it, banging. Or it might be even your mind, it's doing it itself. It's saying, oh, this isn't right, you're feeling weird, they're looking weird, good night Vienna, off button, bang, out. You know, that's the sort of thing, And there was another good one here from 50 years ago. Well, in fact, more in this case, it's nearly 60 years ago. This one was a case in Blackburn, and this was school children as well, same sort of situation, right? It was 300 children were infected in this one, or affected, should I say, not infected. It was a lovely summer's day in 1965 when hundreds of people, young and old, awaited the arrival of Princess Margaret. So once again, what we're talking about, under pressure, they're all having to be on the best behaviour, they're all standing in rows, perhaps a little bit of dehydration going on here, you know what I mean? So among all these people waiting, there was 800 school children who were waiting in the cathedral's ground with their Union Jacks, waiting for it to come and re-hallow the newly restored Blackburn Cathedral. They'd been standing around under the hot sun for 3 hours, right? Suddenly, one by one, they began to fall. Wow. A total of 140 of them collapsed, and the lawns around the cathedral were littered with the bodies of inert youngsters as St. John ambulance members administered hurried first aid. God. Most of the children have been there since early morning, and a lot have come without having breakfast, and that combined with the hot sun and the excitement is causing them to feel faint. But the following day at St Hilda's Girls' School in Blackburn, 98 children it's fainting swept through them. 98 children suddenly keeled over. The whole lot got it as well there. It happened there.
Because they've been talking about it on that night, that other school must have heard about it.
Yeah.
And then it is subconscious in their mind. They just hit an assembly or a similar kind of timing, and bang.
I tell you what, it's a good job that, I mean, in this case, if you look at the era 50 years ago, so this is about 1965 this was occurring, Jimmy Savile was in his pomp. He'd been there with all these kids laying around.
Oh my God, he'd have been stacking them out.
I will help them, yes. Get them in the back of my
boot open quickly.
Put them in the back of my van.
Jiggling, walking out. It's Christmas.
Gary Glitter, you need a hand. Leader, I'm the leader.
On his boat in his leathers.
All the 60s pedos wheeling out, coming out with a digger, shoveling them all up. But this is the thing. This is the same sort of thing. They looked at all these children, right? sorted them all out, realised, I think they knew at this point it was hysteria, you know, so I thought this is, but they made sure everything was fine, checked all these kids out, everybody was okay. The Monday, 54 children went again, that was it. Another massive wave of hysteria took the children.
Wow.
3 waves in Blackburn, all in, basically over one long weekend.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. But they even said the preparations were made to fumigate the school. Doctors and health inspectors turned up, right? They checked the drains, scraped paint from the walls and furniture, took water samples, sent snacks off from the school's tuck shops to laboratories. Nothing was discovered.
Why, it is, innit? They're just hearing it, hitting that in conditions, and boom, they're
That's
all
it.
going.
They're all just going.
Subconscious mind, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely mad, isn't it?
It is mad. That is really mad.
But it shows that, you know, the off triggers and the access to the mind like that is just easily accessible. But what we need to move on to now is a subject which has not yet been broached. Before we get to the one that's not been said, I've just got a little one that I wanted to just squeeze it in.
Squeeze it in out, shoehorn it in out, kid.
And this was this is in Tanganyika. Now, the reason I wanted to sort of squeeze this one is because there's a continent we haven't actually covered yet.
Right.
But it's the place where most of these hysterias have actually occurred.
Wow.
So we've gone to Malaysia and places like this. We've gone to the east.
Iran.
We've gone to Iran, that's it, you know. Africa. That is a place now. I mean, I started listing the amount of schools that was completely swept by hysterias in Africa of this type. We would literally be here for 5 hours.
God,
yeah,
is it?
Yeah, it just go on and on and on these schools. The schools there, because again, desperate situations, hot country as well. Quite easily sort of prone to sort of religious sort of like sweep sort of further going on in some of these schools, because a lot of the time these almost like dueling religions. So for example, you might have like a very, very strong stream of sort of like one version of Christianity in one school, yet at the same time there's a local religion which is still quite strong, local traditions which are still very strong. So there might be the case they believe very devoutly in Christianity, but they do believe in local sort of demon possession could occur, you know, and strange things. And of course, you know, it's a poorer country, as we said before, sometimes you do tap into divination, witch doctors, things to sort of like tell you, are you going to be alright? Whereas if you are a much more secure society, then you don't need to tap into these things as much.
Very, very strong on the, you know, the traditional. Remember, you know, like not the voodoo stuff, but that little kid that got found in that in the Thames or something. They were all dark, not black magic.
I know black. Well, yeah, there was sort of ritual magic.
Exactly.
Types,
it's bigger than you think. That's the first time I could.
Well, weirdly enough, there was a case I was going to cover today, which is a kid's just been discovered in South Africa. He was just like a local kid who just knew was always a bit of a scamp running around, always begging off people. So I got a bit of cash, got anything to win, blah blah. You know what I mean? Anyway, we found him screaming his head off. They found him basically in a ditch. This little kid had been pepper sprayed. Then they found he'd been injured, he'd been stabbed or something. Right, so I thought, oh my God, who's going to stab a kid? Then they realised his genitals had been removed, they'd been cut off, and they didn't know where they were. So this kid's basically been sort of, he's had his...
Been found?
Yeah, so they don't... Well, I don't think being found. I don't think they've taken them off in a thing to sort of use them on something that's so on somebody else.
No, I mean like some black magic ritual.
Yeah, perhaps so. Yeah, so something's happened for that reason. So you think, well, that's an absolutely barbaric, monstrous thing to occur. But yes, so this happened in 1962. This particular place. This is in Tanganyika, which was once united with Zanzibar, right? So to become the modern nation of Tanzania. So that's where this is. Yeah. I always think Zanzibar sounds so exotic.
It does, doesn't it?
So the area we were talking about is just about off Lake Victoria. And this epidemic started in January the 31st, 1962, at a mission-run boarding school.
Here we go.
Here we go, in Kashasha. And it started with 3 girls and spread throughout the school. affecting 95 of the 159 pupils aged 12 to 18. Symptoms lasted from a few hours to 16 days. The teaching staff were unaffected, but the symptoms were just one thing. They laughed.
Oh no, that's worse than screaming.
They laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oh God, no.
And it spread around the local area. One by one, everybody started laughing.
Oh Jesus, how sinister. Oh.
It went so far that it became the point the laughter reports were widely accompanied by descriptions of pain, fainting, respiratory problems, rashes and crying. All in all, 1,000 people were affected.
1,000 people laughing.
Laughing.
Oh no!
Awful, isn't it?
Oh, ain't ah.
So what I'm going to get to, this actually gets us to the crux of what I wanted to say, why a subject we haven't covered yet. Right? All of the cases, have you seen one common occurrence?
They're all girls.
They're all girls.
Yeah.
Where is the male hysteria?
There ain't any so far.
Yeah. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. So then, our kid.
Oh, is it that time? I'll tell you, no, I'm quenched. Your cove quenched me.
It's been a big old research.
I bet, mate. Wow.
Since about 6:30.
What a fucking can of worms, oh, wowzers.
Yeah, it's a good old subject,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? You know what
really,
I mean?
really good.
Yeah. But as we said before, we can't leave it hanging. The one subject that we discussed before, we suggested earlier, is where's all the blokes been going on?
Yeah.
You know, when all the hysteria's been going on with girls, primarily younger girls, but as we've mentioned before, that it was, and I didn't mention this at the Malaysian school, it was the female members of staff. It was all female members of staff. They were the ones who were struck down by what we're going to call hysteria, possession, who knows? But what I'm thinking, it's looking a lot more like towards the hysterical side of things, you know. Yeah. But so what's been happening with the chaps? Why haven't they been getting hysterical themselves? Well, perhaps they have.
Shit.
So we've got ourselves here. This is from again the Straits Times, which is we've talked a couple of times. Mentioned this, the Qatar newspaper and various things. It covers various things. This is going to be a bit tricky, this, because it's an old newspaper report I've got right, and it's a brilliant headline. So this is from Tuesday, November the 7th, 1967. And like I say, I will apologise because I'm basically reading from an old newspaper here. The headline is, "Do not fear Koro."
Koro.
Koro, spelled Koro. Do not fear Koro.
I'm scared of him already.
Yeah. So we are actually in the Singapore area here for this particular one, but I'm going to move on from it as well. A panel of medical experts today pinpointed psychological fear as the main cause of the current Singapore Koro epidemic. This was their official medical theory at a health ministry press conference this morning. There have been widespread rumours over the past week that Koro is caused by eating the pork of pigs, which is the only place you get the pork of pigs, or eating pork basically.
Wait,
sorry, sorry, I've read that wrong. The past week that Koro is caused by eating the pork of pigs recently vaccinated in a mass campaign to combat swine fever.
Right, yeah, that's better. Pork of pigs sounded cool. I like that. I want pork pigs.
Right. This has led to almost standstill in the sale of pork, both in the markets, eating stalls, both in markets and eating stalls and restaurants.
Yeah.
So you can't move people.
Suddenly you can't get pig.
Well, you can get pig, but nobody's buying it. That's the thing. The panel emphatically declared that there was absolutely no foundation whatsoever that Koro was connected with pork eating or the recent outbreak of swine fever, as this fever only affected pigs. Yeah. As for vaccination, they said it was only a combatant against swine fever and did not have any effect on other animals, let alone human beings. So since the October 28th, when the rumour first became that cholera was caused by eating of pork, there's been an average 80 people daily called in the outdoor dispensaries of government hospitals claiming that they were suffering from the disease. Right? So what's basically occurring here? Now this is interesting. There's a couple of aspects of this we want to talk about. So what they're claiming is they've eaten this pork. Yeah. The claim's gone around that it's making your dick disappear inside yourself. Right?
Well, that's the only time in history that men have gone into hysteria. It's about cocks.
About cocks disappearing, yeah.
Whoa.
So 80 people a day. And these are the ones who are actually bothering to turn up to hospital, right? Yeah. Now this is Malaysia, a predominantly Muslim country now.
Yeah.
But of course they're eating pork at the time. Pork is, again, a difficult sort of meat in the Muslim faith, you know. So I'm not sure. I don't have enough sort of information on it at the moment to say whether this was actually sort of an issue. Don't eat pork anyway. People eat pork. There's an issue with pork. Why it is pork that's causing this issue? Although the vaccination's obviously an issue, but really, I don't know where they've got the idea that this is going to get them. But coro is a common incident amongst certain cultures. This thing of like you eat something happens.
And your cock falls off.
And no, it doesn't fall. It disappears. It disappears inside yourself.
Yeah.
When I said before we've not been to Africa, this is the biggest hysteria going among a lot of African men. Yeah. Is their cocks disappearing
inside yourself,
inside themselves.
It's like when your knacker gets sucked up. That's a frightening experience, isn't it? I hear that. You know what I mean? When it goes
inside. The bollock?
Yeah, you're like, oh, pop out, pop out.
You're massaging yourself.
Yeah, like, oh, it pop out.
Horrible feeling, sickening feeling. But this happens time and time again. They're finding before again a lot of cases in Africa. We can cover loads of these. Yeah. But the amount of times these fears, these crazes, these terrors occur amongst men, that their dicks are disappearing inside themselves. But quite often it's caused by a witch doctor in an area. Wow. So what they'll be saying is, they'll be running at a medical centre saying, my dick's disappearing, my dick's getting smaller, it's getting smaller. They're running in with weights and string and all sorts attached to their dicks to stop them going inside themselves. These traps, right? Yeah. So these things dangling on, they're holding on like, God, you won't let go. You won't let go because if I let go, you're going to get sucked inside myself. I'm going to lose my dick. The shaman or the people who think of doing this, the black magicians who are causing this issue, quite often, obviously nobody's really done it. Next thing you know, they've got a fucking couple of tyres around them being set fire to in the middle of the street. Jesus. This is the sort of thing that occurs because these panics and these fears sort of sweep through communities really, really fast.
Wow, that's a bizarre that it's men with the cocks in it. Yeah. That's really funny.
But I think that's where the men's main pressure of anything occurs.
Isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, the lack of pressure on that little old man down there.
Yeah, well, it's what it represents, isn't it? It's a masculinity, strength, power, control.
Yeah.
So there's situations where men are probably feeling lack of control, out of control. They're not feeling as masculine, perhaps, as they once might feel, and they're feeling under threat. What is the main totem of their masculinity? Their todger, and it's disappearing or getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's disappearing.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
It's just pure Freud, isn't it? Yeah, it's a Freudian thing.
Oh, God.
So that's what, and this is a common recognised condition in a lot of different states.
Wow.
That people are worried that their dicks are disappearing. so whereas we hear all the time of like these hysterias running through schoolgirls in sort of like your pupils in schools and things, these hysterias, the ones of men is a little bit less known about, but it's no less prevalent in certain societies.
I'm going to have to film my dick. It's smaller!
It's only 8 inches, our kid.
On Slack.
Having trouble once again with the devil's doorknob.
The devil's doorknob! That was really good. Where did you get it from, you crazy bastard?
So, I think what we need to do is another monster episode.
Wowzers, yeah.
But do you know, it's been fun to be back, and the fact is we did one last week and it was bloody dreadful.
We've done alright so far, haven't we? Well, that was a shocker, right? Stinker.
It was just hard work. We were really, really tired. The subject matter we chose was the visual medium.
Yeah.
For an audio podcast, it doesn't work out. Hopefully this one is going to be a bit more fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's like, we're going to leave you. Be careful with the hysteria out there, guys. If you feel a bit weird, you know what I mean? What I suggest is have a little bit of a breather. Just take yourself out of the situation, you know what I mean? Just sort of say, and have a word with yourself. Just sort of think, I'm not being hysterical. Chill out. And if you're feeling a bit like you got a small cock, let's face it, we all have.
Yeah, exactly. Just give it a bit of a thumbing. You know what I mean? It always looks a bit better, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Keep it warm. Give it a bit of a thumbing.
And if it still won't grow, what I find is if you just stick a finger up your ass. No, quite like a pokey bum wank, is there? And on that devastating note, it's going to be a big bye-bye from Matt.
It's a big bye-bye from Benny. And take care, guys. Jesus.
There are 3 ways you may contact Kraken Cove. Either by email at krakencovepodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at Kraken Cove, or Instagram at Kraken Cove Pod. Ha ha!